And I live for the one I love. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And about, let me see what I got here. Maybe about 15 questions.
live for the one I love. Hey. Who do you live? I live for the one I love. Oh, Jesus. His name is Jesus. I live for the one I love. Oh, I love him. His name is Jesus. I live for the one I love. Oh, I love him. Say, I dance for the one I love. Oh, I love him. I dance for the one I love. Say, I clap for the one I love. Oh, I love him. I clap for the one I love. I clap for the one I love. I love him. I clap for the one I love. I shout for the one I love. I love him. I shout for the one I love. I love him. I rejoice for the one I love. Rejoice for your lover. Rejoice for your lover. Rejoice for your lover. Rejoice for your lover. I rejoice for the one I love.
This service is provided in high definition.
I want to tell you a story.
I used to believe that Jesus was a Catholic God, God of the Gentiles.
I imagined that Jesus was Italian.
The New Testament was one of those books that I saw nuns reading on the subway.
I was expecting to find a handbook on how to persecute.
Pierce through me, cut through me, open me. Do your surgical work in me till I see like you see. Pierce through me, cut through me, open me up. Do your surgical work in me till I see like you see. Take away every spiritual glaucoma. I need to see. I don't want to see men like trees. I need to see. We don't want to see men like trees. We need to see. We need to see. We need to see. Can you say, pierce through me, God, pierce through me, cut through me, open me up to your surgical work in me till I see like you see. Pierce through me, God, pierce through me, cut through me, open me up to your surgical work in me till I see like you see. Pierce through me, God, pierce through me, cut through me, open me up to your surgical work in me till I see like you see. This is our prayer. Pierce through us, God, pierce through me, oh, through me, open us up.
Richard and Prince Vivian Crab are here.
Great. Good to hear from you. Uncle Rich, can you hear me clear? Can you hear me, Uncle Richie? Oh, can you hear me, Uncle Richie? Hello? Can you hear me? Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I can hear you. Can you hear me? Agreed. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay, great.
you need a little more volume.
Okay. Is it much better? Is it better? Can you hear me, Uncle Richard?
Yeah.
Can you hear?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay.
All right, great. All right, so folks, once again, we are super excited to welcome all of you to today's show. We are in the month of October, believe it or not, the first month of the last quarter. And as usual, before we start our show for today, I want us to bow down our heads for a quick short prayer, and then we will hand over to Mr. and Mrs. Crab to take us through.
The recording has started.
Let us pray. Father, in the name of Jesus, we give you glory. We give you praise. We thank you for your mercies. And we thank you for your love. Thank you for the opportunity to come together to study your word and to learn together. We pray that even as we study together, you will grant us wisdom, understanding, knowledge to be able to grasp everything that Mr. and Mrs. Clark will take us through in today's program. We thank you for strength for Mr. and Mrs. Clark as well, and also for our listenership. We pray that we will have a good time in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. So, folks, there is a question which has bothered many. as far as marriage is concerned, the issue of culture, the issue of tradition, and the marriage itself. I know this bothers a lot of people, especially those who have race marriages. But today we are so privileged. Mr. and Mrs. Club will take us through an hour of learning. And guess what? We also have the opportunity to ask questions. So without much ado, I hand over to Mr. and Mrs. Club to take us through an hour of learning. Over to you, Uncle Richard.
Thank you, Dr. Sam, and your team at Be Inspired Podcast. We appreciate your work and welcoming also all our esteemed listeners from all over the world. We appreciate your joining us. Thank you. We don't take it for granted. And yes, for us, it's a privilege and a joy to be able to meet with you virtually and to be able to share some thoughts with you today on culture, tradition, and your marriage. So let's dig in. Marriage basically involves two people, husband and wife. What is often not seriously considered when two such people come together to marry is that being in love and wanting to have a life together as a couple is not enough. Because the couple have to consider how they will relate to each other in harmony and in a way that both feel fulfilled. And one key area that every couple has to deal with is the effect or impact of the cultures each of them belong to or may even want to live by. And as we go on, you'll see that the cultures you come from or you already belong to and how you want to live may not necessarily be the same. Well, first of all, what is culture? Why is it so important to our relationships as couples? There's so many different ways people define culture, but all are agreed that culture is a way of life of people. And as you know, we all have different ways of life, so it's very easy to say, oh, then we're all different cultures. Not necessarily. So here's, there are a couple of definitions which we think help us to understand or give us good context for our discussion tonight. First of all, one that says culture encompasses the social behavior, the institutions, and the norms found in human societies, as well as the knowledge, belief, the arts, the laws, the customs, the capabilities, and the habits of the individuals in these groups. So it's a whole lot of things. Another definition that probably highlights why culture is important for relationships says that culture is a way of life of a group of people. That is the behaviors, beliefs, values, symbols they accept, generally without thinking about them. And that these are passed along by communication and imitation. That's following the example. That's all it means. And imitation from one generation to the next. And it concludes, culture is symbolic communication. So, see why I said it links very closely to what we're going to discuss. Culture is symbolic communication. It's a way of life that people generally accept without thinking about it. You just do it. Why do you sit the way you do? Why do you eat the way you do? Why do you even eat certain foods? All of these combine to make us who we are. That's why it affects our relationships. Because each one of us, yes, does belong to the culture. How about tradition? The root word for tradition is from Latin, tradere, which means to hand over. See, it sounds like trade, right? Yes, you're right. To hand over. So tradition is said to be the transmission, handing over of customs or beliefs from generation to generation, or the fact of being passed on. You see, this is why tradition is not culture but forms part of culture. You can say a subset for those of you who are mathematically inclined. Tradition is a subset of culture. This is why within a culture, every family can have its own unique traditions, while we share the common ones. Think, for example, for some people, they have a tradition of spending Christmas together and maybe in grandma's house. That's the tradition. If you belong to that family, you have to go there. Next month, November, will be Thanksgiving month in the U.S. On Thanksgiving Day, many families have a tradition. You go back and you go and meet in one family member's home. That's the tradition. Some families have a tradition of going to church every week. Some have a tradition of reading the Bible and praying together daily as a family. That's a tradition for them. Some families have a tradition of celebrating occasions such as birthdays. Not every family does that. So that becomes yours, you see. So you can see that in themselves, then culture and tradition are not necessarily bad. In fact, every culture, every tradition has good and bad elements. So why do they become problems? Or should they? Or are they? They are problems sometimes. But is it the culture or the traditions that are the problems? Just stay with us. See, first of all, we all of us, are products of culture and tradition. Culture and tradition don't belong to immigrants to your country where you are. No. Every one of us. Everywhere you go, there is culture. Everybody also belongs to at least one culture. Yes. Because your parents may be from different cultures. And here's the thing. Because even from the same country, within the same country, there are different cultures. I'm not talking traditions, I'm talking culture. Because it is the way of life of the people. You can think of where your parents come from. If your parents come from Scotland, your mother comes from Scotland, and your father comes from England. Yes, they're all in Great Britain, but the Scots have their own ways of doing things. The English have their own ways of doing things. The Welsh would have their own way. The Irish would have their own way. One country. See what I'm saying? So think of your country. Whether it's Zimbabwe, Azerbaijan, Japan, people within the same country, different groupings of people will have their own cultures. The way they dress, even languages can be different in the same country. This is why we're saying every one of us belongs to at least one culture. And this culture gives us the mindset about how to do things, how to behave in different contexts, how to treat people, and what not to do. So simply put, culture determines how we live. And so when we are in a relationship, we naturally expect our partner will go along with our way of doing things. But we often fail to consider that our partner also has their own culture, to guide how they live. So, for example, two people meet in America. They're from different countries, so it's easy to think of it that way. What about two Americans? Do you think of where they have come from? One from Midwest, one from East Coast. Can you already begin to see different cultures? Midwest, East Coast, the West Coast, the South. Yes, now you're beginning to see different ways of doing things. And we think because we belong to the same country, everything should be okay. No. Now you're beginning to see why perhaps you and your partner, you and your spouse, have some differences you don't understand. Now, where both partners do not share the same culture, that's where the clashes begin. That means maybe almost all of us. But at the beginning of a relationship, why don't we see those clashes often? Well, because in the joy and euphoria of being in love, we may overlook or even ignore the differences. But in the lead up to marriage, yes, before the marriage takes place, in the lead up to marriage, when plans are being made, the differences may begin to stick out, especially for customary or traditional marriage, as well as the wedding ceremonies. Because somebody says, oh, no, why do they want to get married that way? Or why are they not getting married this way? And often we think, oh, it's only Africans or Asians or people from South America that have traditional marriage. No. Marriage ceremonies, even wherever you live, they have their own way of getting married. Yes, not every person from the West goes to get married in the church. So yes, there is a format for people getting married, whether it's in the courthouse, in City Hall, or in a church. Yeah, this is where the traditions also come to play. So now, imagine if your parents married in church and you are deciding, no, we want to marry at the beach. Can you see the problem? Their tradition that they have grown up with, because it's been passed on to them from generation to generation. You are the fourth generation that they know about. And you and your fiancé are deciding to go to marry on a beach, it ain't gonna happen. Your parents might be saying, and you think, what's wrong with them? Because you're going against their tradition. This is not what we do. This is the other side of cultures and traditions, why they become problematic, let's say, for those who have to navigate them. That's the word, navigate. It is because when we go against our culture, it is like you're going against the mainstream. It's like a fish swimming the wrong way from other fish. It looks so wrong, and everybody's wondering, why are they doing things like that? And yes, what happens is that culturally, that's the word, you will be ostracized. People are going to say, what is this? People begin to cut you off. For some people, if they're not cutting you off, you may be punished. There are sanctions, What sanctions do you do? No, this is not how we do it. We may not show up for this. You want this, you're on your own. And it's not easy for us because we're social beings. We want to be with people. Who wants to be cut off from their family because they want to get married or because they are married? That is why, for those of you who might be living close to in-laws, for example, or living with in-laws, you may hear things like, why do you do things this way? This is the wrong way to do it. Why are you not doing this? Why do you do this? You have to stop doing this. They frown on the things you do because it looks foreign to them. It's strange. We don't do this. Many of you may have heard. Men from our part of the world don't do this. Men from where we come from do this. Women our women don't do this, our women do that. I'm sure you've heard it before, if you're married or if you're in a relationship, or simply because you belong to a family, and we all do. So you see why these influences are very strong, because we don't want to offend the people close to us, and the pressure can be very strong. So what happens then? The other thing why culture and tradition might be problems in our relationships is that we do not realize that they influence the way we do things. Because culture shapes our mind, the traditions we're used to shape our mind. That's why when you're with someone and you're used to celebrating birthdays, and it's your birthday, and there is no celebration for you, well, what's your conclusion? They don't like you. They're strange. They're mean. But maybe it's not their tradition. And we need to find out why, rather than conclude, which is where we often go wrong. And because we think sometimes we think our culture or the tradition we're used to is the right one. Because that's what we know. So we think our partners is wrong. Then sometimes also because of the disapproval we face or we fear we may face from our people, we tend to push for what we are used to. And we not only push or pressure our partner or our spouse to do what we are comfortable with. So we're doing that because we want them to conform, or else we and them, but we're actually thinking of ourselves. We are the ones who will face disapproval from our people. And sometimes what happens is that the one who's pushing for a certain way of behavior, a certain way of doing things, is already feeling the heat from their side. Why doesn't your spouse do this? Why is your spouse doing that? And so they try to do the same, but the partner doesn't know that, as we say, they're flying the family flag. They're flying their conscience flag. Sometimes people know, and they also resist because they also have their own flag to fly. Then some people simply reject or abandon their own culture and take on others. For example, you have somebody who can leave Nigeria, move to the US, and suddenly, or not suddenly, but over time, as the saying goes, they become more American than the Americans themselves. Now that we're saying America doesn't have one culture, because they might even become more Texan than the Texans themselves, or become more, New York than the New Yorkers themselves. You see, the way they talk, dress, do things, the mindset, even the way they reason, everything is more New York than others, than the people who even originate from there. And people reject their own cultures for different reasons. Some do it so they're more accepted where they are. Where it becomes even more difficult for others is that they begin to think that the cultures that they come from, that have shaped them, are backward, primitive, they might sometimes even describe them, so that they're now progressive. This often happens when people move from one country to the other, where and that even informs the mindset that where they are is more advanced than the country they came from, and therefore everything, including the culture they have left, is primitive. Nothing good can come from it. When they talk about where they've come from, it's all negative, nothing useful, you know. Forgetting that the same cultures help them to become who they are today. For some also, they go the opposite way. Everything they've had before is great. What they have now is terrible. We get that. You know, the people living in the U.S., everything in the U.S. is terrible. Their own country is the best. And you can see how this can affect them where they are if they're living in the U.S. Because you keep looking back, you'll find it very difficult to adapt where you are. You can see how this begins to affect your marriage. You're living in America, but you're thinking, you know, Uganda. You're living in Britain, but you're thinking Sierra Leone. If we were in Sierra Leone, this is not how a wife would behave. If we were in Nigeria, this is not how a husband would be. These are the things we often think about. If we were in Ghana, this is not what I would have been doing as a man. You are even fortunate that as a Ghanaian man, I'm doing this when we are in America. Hello? What do you think? Where do you think your wife is living? She's also living in America. And friends, this is the reason why some people, those who think everything is great from their countries, it's one of the reasons, it's not the only, it's one of the reasons why some people send their children home to be educated or to be raised there, actually, not to be, but to be raised in their culture so they can learn the language, learn how to respect people and behave, etc., etc. You know, then when they're older, they can come to university in another country. But it is also a basic reason for singles who are listening on this program. It is also a basic reason why parents send or, want their children to marry people from their own countries. Because they feel they're going to be more comfortable. This person is from my country. Maybe they even speak my language. They're from my town. Or near us, we know the people from this area, how they live, how they behave. Their parents are more comfortable with them. But the mistake parents can also make, and I know there are many parents on the program, the mistakes we parents can also make is that our children might be in the U.S., might be in Britain, might be in Germany, for example, and they might meet people. We're very happy when they meet other children whose parents also, are from our own countries, and we're very happy. But we forget that we have raised the children in another culture. So for many of us, we are products of 2, 3, sometimes even more cultures. This is why major differences arise in marriage. So what do we do? Well, there's one more, I should say. I've already mentioned that being from the same country doesn't mean we will have the same culture. But then, 2 more points. First of all, every culture has certain taboos, do's and don'ts. And you face strong disapproval if you break these taboos. Men don't do this, men do that. So if you are seen doing what men are not expected to do, yes, there's disapproval. Did you hear what I said? If you are seen, or people find out this is what you do. In some cultures, men do not cook. No, kitchen is not for men. Stay out. In fact, there are some wives who are very upset when their husbands go to the kitchen and they want to cook or help to cook. Yes, and they may be living in another culture, not even theirs. Because they don't want people to think that they're bad women or they're not good wives. There's some women who love it and have no problem, even though they might be from the same culture. Well, let people see, let them talk. I'm happy my husband helps me. But the problem becomes when one person says, where I come from, this is what we do, and they're not prepared to do anything else, regardless of the fact that they might be living in a completely different culture. And I said two things. The other thing is that it has to do with different roles, and I'm already into them. Roles of who cooks, who looks after the kids, who does laundry, who cleans the home, And you do know, many people listening to this are living outside their own countries of origin. And even if you're in your own country of origin, we are not living in the same times as our parents or grandparents lived. Why do we want to behave or do things exactly the same? Talking with a group of young people, I asked, when people say, as men, we ought to be doing this, the women should be doing this. That all sounds great. That sounds great. But have you considered that the example you're giving, men from your country or your culture that you're mentioning, they went out and got the meat, brought it home, brought it home to the women who were home, cooking, cleaning, and looking after children, and the women didn't have to go and do the same thing. So when you're living in another country where both men and women are now going to work and bringing the money, should it be the same? We all go 8 to 5, 9 to 5, some do 12 hours, some do 9, 8. So why is it that when both of us are home, only one person, the woman, should do everything? Sometimes it's just not practical. What if one person works nights? The woman works nights. The husband doesn't. So who's going to look after the kids? That's the reality. So first of all, if we're going to deal with this, we need to understand that for every one of us, we may have, in fact, for every one of us, there are things we will have to shift in our minds. We cannot continue in a relationship or marriage with the same mindset our fathers, mothers, grandparents had. This is the way we do things. You know the saying, the 7 last words of any dying institution. And we saw that word in the definition of culture. It includes our institutions, marriage, relationships, bringing up children, all of those different things. 7 last words of any dying institution. We have always done it this way. That institution will die. And despite the way we try to enforce, that's the word, enforce and pressure people to conform to cultural and traditional practices, the truth of the matter, yes, the researchers tell us, the sociologists tell us, culture is dynamic. It changes. For example, there are places where to go bury someone, everyone walks. Because the cemetery was so close to the houses. Now, they're longer distances. They don't walk. They go by some vehicle. The times have changed. The way of burying people has changed. So why, if those things we have changed? Yes, and as I asked somebody, your grandfather walked everywhere he went. Your great-grandfather did so. Now you drive a car. Why don't you walk everywhere you go? When it comes to doing things around the house, your wife has to do everything because your mother and your grandmother did everything around the house. Why aren't you also walking? Why aren't you going to hunt for meat? Why aren't you going to the farm? Now you work in an office. The times have changed. Let's be real, brothers and sisters, friends, and let's do things in a way that helps each other to feel fulfilled in the relationship. So what can we do? Let's dig in. And there's so many different things that we are affected, that our cultures impact. I'll just zing through them so you know. The oneness between partners. There are many cultures, they don't regard husband and wife as one. The man belongs to his family, the woman belongs to her family. This is where Christians, for example, will find problems because the Christian understanding, the biblical understanding of marriage is that the husband and his wife are one. So if I belong here, you also belong there. But it's culturally, no. You don't belong to our family. You just came to marry. You can see the problem. Because when it comes to cultural things, your people will not consider your wife as part of them. Some cultures do, which is great. So there's no problem there. But some do not. And then how about children? Some cultures, children belong to the man. Others, they belong to the woman. Even headship of the family. It's not automatic that the man is head. In some cultures, it's the family head, the head of the extended family, who's really in charge. So matters are sent to the head of family to arbitrate. No, it's not the man who has the final say. Some of you men listening, now you know. You might not be too happy. So this is why when we insist that I'm a traditional man, I'm a cultural man, we need to be careful what we're really saying. Do we really want to go with all that the culture says? All that it regulates and demands that we do? Or are we picking and choosing what suits us? How about inheritance? In some places, only sons inherit. Daughters don't. So what if you only have daughters like I do? And what if you are a daughter, but you are brothers? What happens? In some cultures, women cannot initiate sex. No. You don't. So what do you do with your desire for your husband? You wait for him, and if he ain't coming, or he ain't making the move, what do you do? How about in-laws? In some cultures, they have direct influence in all family matters. In others, keep off. And then think of, even the two people visiting can be an issue. For some people, the man goes to visit his people. His wife only attends or goes by invitation from the family. He just doesn't take her there. Could be the same for the woman. So what if as a couple you want to visit together? These are things we need to talk about. And how do we talk about them? First of all, each one of us must have an open mind. Open mind. You can say to yourself, I must have an open mind. My culture is not necessarily the best. Yes, I love it. I think it's the best. But guess what? My wife also belongs to a culture. She might think hers is the best. So what do we do as a couple? Well, first of all, we have to find out. And many of us who even claim that we're traditional, we are a traditionalist, we don't even know the traditions. You know one or two things, and you think you are an expert. You don't, because you have to study. There's a whole lot we don't know. We have to find out. Different ways of doing things. And we find out from both sides. Husband side, wife side. If you're not yet married, yes, your partner, the male, the female, learn, what is expected of a woman in this, what is expected of a man. And that's the start. It's only the start. Because knowing it, then you know what you have to deal with. And then we go to the second step, where knowing those things, we have to show respect for them. Because it's very easy with the mindset we have to condemn others. And for some of us, we don't openly condemn, but we look down on them in the ways we do things. I will not have that language spoken in my house. Really? Your spouse speaks that language. So if you don't want the language spoken in your house, do you want them in your house too? So my children must not speak that language. You've forgotten that the children belong to your spouse too. Do you see where who the children belong to becomes a problem now? And then sometimes it's even the name. But that's another story, When we discuss with respect. Because when we begin to look down on what each other has, or where we have come from, or what we belong to, we fail to realize that if I'm disrespecting the culture that my spouse or my partner belongs to, I am actually disrespecting them. Because what did we say at the beginning? Culture is the people's way of life. The third thing is that knowing the cultures we have to work with or navigate, we do not follow blindly the practices that are there. We don't follow blindly. As a married couple, one of the things we have to do is, and even before you get married, discuss with each other. How do we discuss with each other? We ask ourselves, what are some of the major issues we have to face? How will we deal with them? Because you, as a couple, and every married couple, yes, you also have the opportunity to start your own tradition. There are practices you can start. Yes, cultures respect this. We already said it. Within every culture, every family can have their own tradition. This is how we will do this. This is how we will do that. Yes. And overall, there are things that you can agree on that may not contravene either culture, and that may not be taboos in either culture or the cultures that you've come from. But then where do you disagree? What do you do? Are there elements that you can take out? Or, this particular one, I don't know. He wants it, I don't want it. She wants it, I don't want it. Well, let me ask, is there a third option for both of you? Maybe the more important question is, can we live without this and still have a good relationship? That's something you can think about. And then as we do this with an open mind, it will help us to be able, as we listen to each other, we then create from all that we have, we might be creating our own world where we actually can have the best of the cultures we come from. Having been involved in so many marriages, some cross-cultural, cross-national, cross-race, and cross-ethnic, intertribal, etc., etc. Often what we focus on before the marriage, is, oh, I love it, especially you have somebody from, the West and somebody from Africa or Asia. People, they're looking forward to the colorful costumes and the music and the dance and all that. And we forget that after marriage, those things have not disappeared from our partners' minds or their lives. So yes, Somebody might be listening to hip life, and somebody might be used not to hip life, maybe classical music, or somebody different kind of music. Are we open to all that, or it's only ours that has to rule? That can be a problem. What do we also do as Christians? It's important also as Christians to discuss these things, consider the various cultural issues. I gave you a few, children, marriage, and even things like divorce and in-laws, What does the Bible say about these and their influence in our marriage? We need to look at it that way. And then in matters where the Bible is not explicit, what can we do? Some of us always want to see, the Bible does not say my mother cannot cook in our house when she comes to visit. So why is my wife making a fuss? Well, what does the Bible say about how you treat others? You treat them like you would have them treat you. Will your mother be happy if your father's mother came into her house and decided to cook without telling them? See? Principles. So let's get into the word also and find out how the principles that we can use to deal with people. And it's important. Respect, learn, and after you've learned, discuss what you can apply. And all told, one key thing that every couple should strive for is the oneness that they need. Because if we let people know or begin to think we are not together, yes, they're going to exploit it. And what happens? They will begin to point fingers at us. So each one of us, married people, we need to resolve to make oneness with our spouse non-negotiable. I will stand with my spouse, but that means we two are going to work together to see how we can navigate our different cultures. And especially when pressure is being put upon us to conform, what do we do with our spouse? And then one of the things we learned along the way, my wife and myself, we have to outdo others who don't have the same faith as we do. We outdo them in the positive aspects of culture, especially those relating to marriage. Let's show them that we know these things and we can do it better than them. There are many positive things. And then, when we face abuse, usually it's one person, not both. When we face abuse, sometimes ridicule, sometimes even being ostracized, people cutting you off, what do? This is where we call upon our oneness as spouses. One very interesting thing, there's a verse we read in the Bible, we even hear it at weddings. We don't think about it. If you get married in a church, you definitely would have heard this. Genesis 2:24. Genesis 2:24. It's very interesting how it relates to this. Genesis chapter 2 and verse 24. We're going to hear what it says. It will be a good reminder.
Genesis chapter 2, verse 24. This is from the New Living Translation. This explains why a man leaves his father and mother and is joined to his wife, and the two are united into one.
So we leave father and mother. Does it mean we're leaving our culture? No, not necessarily. But we leave them so that we can be joined to our spouses, joined, united. then we become one. So I come with my set of values and traditions and cultures. My two parents came from different cultures. My wife does the same. We leave our parents. If we're going to be joined, do we then, and her parents also came from two cultures, do we then have four cultures? Maybe we find, so how have we done it? We've looked for elements from each that we can really practice without a problem. Yes, we run into problems sometimes. Why don't you do this? Why are you doing this? Why are you washing clothes with your wife? Because there are only two of us. Who else is going to do it? We got 5 kids. She can't do it all by herself. She's got a job, full-time job. She's a businesswoman. She's got people working for her. I'm also busy. So between the two of us, we meet the kids, we wash their clothes. No, men don't do this. Well, we still persevere. Maybe during our question time discussion, my wife will be happy to share that story with you, how we navigated that. Because where mom comes from, the men don't go washing their kids' clothes. You see, the interesting thing sometimes is, despite the fact that you have these things, some of them, even our parents broke those rules, so to speak, Because I grew up, the young boy, little boy, so to speak, I remember my father cooking. For all of us, 6 children. He was the one who washed, starched, and ironed our school uniforms. He was the one who did it. It wasn't my mom. This was in the 60s. 60s, early 70s. Yes, he did. And he wasn't any less of a man. A strong, bull-headed man. Yes, but he did. And it didn't make him any less of a man. So, why wouldn't I be able to wash my kids' clothes? Is it because I was following him? No, I did it because it was practical. Maybe for some of us, we have to ask ourselves, what is practical? Instead of being worried about what will my friends say, what will my sisters say, what will my brothers say. Let them say what they will say. You will be enjoying your marriage. And that's even more important than what anyone else will say. Because we leave and we're joined and we become one. 2 other scriptures, then I will hand over to Dr. Sam for questions. Sometimes I said we do have traditions that are frowned upon. Yes, sometimes the church can also be strong because it has its own traditions. You have to do this, you have to do that. And there are times when we have to say, no, I need to make time for my family, so I will not be present at this meeting. And yes, you're going to face trouble from your pastor too. So what do? Jesus had some of the strongest words for religious leaders. And I'm one. So when I read these things, I take them serious. Let's hear what he told. And he had something to say about traditions. Yes, he did. And very often he came against the traditions of his time. Let's hear what he said to the Jewish leaders in Mark chapter 7, the Gospel of Mark, chapter 7, verses 8 and 9. Easy to remember, 7, 8, 9. Mark chapter 7, verses 8 and 9.
Mark chapter 7, verses 8 and 9. For you ignore God's law and substitute your own tradition. Then he said, you skillfully sidestep God's law in order to hold on to your own tradition.
Can you read that second one again, verse 9?
Verse 9, then he said, that is, Jesus said, you skillfully sidestep God's law in order to hold on to your own tradition.
See, for many of us, that's what we do. When we realize that things, no, this is what we do. Suddenly we are traditional people. Let me leave with this one, and then we'll have our last scripture. We'll just think of, how, someone put it. A man and his wife talking about, a man saying, this is what my wife, I'm an African, I want an African wife. So that sounds great. Wife is African, he's also African. And he's talking about things she should be doing in the house. It has to do with cooking. She has to do this, she has to do, okay? That sounds all good. We understand that. Yes. Then we have the question, so what happens about the bills? If you're in America, you know what I'm talking about, the bills. They said, well, when it comes to money matters, we're in America, you have to understand, we both have to, work and bring money to pay the bills. I said, oh, really? So when it comes to the bills, you are in America. When it comes to who should make the food, you want an African wife. But when it's bills, you want an American wife, right? That's our problem. We pick and choose. Just like Jesus told the religious leaders, you skillfully set you skillfully sidestep, how God wants us to live so we can fulfill our tradition. So let's close out with this. What do we do overall? If you're a Christian person, another occasion, it wasn't Jesus, it was his disciples who were even forbidding them to speak in the name of Jesus because that would be against their religious tradition. We don't want to hear this name Jesus. And they brought them before the highest religious council. The two men, Peter and John. This is what they told them, recorded in the Acts of the Apostles, chapter 5, verse 29.
Acts of the Apostles, chapter 5, verse 29. But Peter and the apostles replied, we must obey God rather than any human authority.
We must obey God rather than any human authority. Easier said than done. That's why we need each other in the relationship. Because we will face opposition. Do we stand for what we believe is right in the sight of God, or do we follow our traditions and our practices? Do we respect where each other has come from, the things that have shaped them, or do we look down on them because we're now living abroad and our people are nowhere around? Do we listen to each other so we can learn from each other? Or we think we know everything, and what we know is the only right way and the best way? Or do we have room in our minds to accommodate the fact that my spouse, my partner may also be able to contribute something to our relationship, to our way of life that will enrich us and make for a fulfilling and enjoyable marriage? That's how we navigate culture and tradition. Where we lack wisdom, as Christians, we say, just as the Bible tells us in James 1:5, if you lack wisdom, ask God. Ask for his wisdom. And he who gives us the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of truth, the advocate is somebody who speaks for, right? He says in his word, he will give freely that wisdom to anyone who asks. Let's not be too quick to push our point of view, our cultures, our traditions, but let us listen and learn from each other. That's the way we can strengthen our relationships and make our marriages more enjoyable. Thank you and God bless you. We hand over now to Dr. James Jacobs Abbey, and he will take us through our question time. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you so much. One second. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Uncle Richard, for such a powerful topic. We have. Yes, thank you so much, Uncle Richard, for such a powerful presentation. We have a lot of questions have come in today, and we wouldn't waste much time. We'll go straight to the questions so we can get some answers to the questions. The first question is coming from Nigeria, and it reads, how much should cultural tradition factor into marriage? Is it important to honor them, or should the focus be on the couples?
Interesting. I think our whole presentation has been that we all are cultural beings, so to speak. So we can't ignore our culture. So everything we do is cultural. Everything. You know, how we eat, even how we cook, you know, all of it. How we even serve the food is a cultural thing. You know, it's a cultural thing. So what we need to do, as we said, is first learn about these things and identify what we as a couple can practice. You know, first of all, the ones we can practice without a problem. You know, and then we can begin to grapple with, okay, the ones that will become a problem, why would it be a problem? And what can we do about it?
Actually, any marriage tradition is actually about a couple. Maybe a little about family, but it's actually about a couple. So maybe you might have to ask the question another way for us to understand what you mean. It's not always about the couple.
Thank you very much, Uncle Richard and Auntie Vivian, for that. There's another question here coming from Sierra Leone, and he says that how do family expectations and approval factor into marriages based on cultural traditions? In other words, should culture plays a pivotal role in choosing your spouse?
Everybody believes that whatever culture they come from is the best. That's the general belief of people. So they wish that their children will marry from wherever they come from, especially if they have seen a problem with a certain culture, something they don't like. They begin to do that, you know. And even in the Bible, it so happened that Isaac and Rebekah, they had two children, Esau and Jacob. Esau married from where they were, and according to the Bible, they were a source of grief to Rebekah and Isaac. So Rebekah decides, and I read from Genesis chapter 27, verse 46. Rebekah actually said, I'm sick and tired of these local Hittite women. I would rather die than see Jacob marry one of them. You see, she was thinking that if Jacob also married from that tribe, it would be terrible in the house. So what did they do? They sent Jacob to her hometown. Jacob actually married his cousin. He went to their hometown and got into his uncle's house, married his own cousin. Parents feel that all the time, and they want children to marry from their tribe because they think that their tribe is the best. That is the basic reason why they do that. So maybe we shouldn't follow them, but we can help them to understand, especially if they've seen something, a problem with a particular area or people from a particular area. They don't want their children to go there. It's up to you to convince them that maybe your husband or your wife is not what they have seen. It's not like the one they have seen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Auntie Vivian. Thank you. So the other question, and this is coming from the US, and it reads, "They are stereotyping in all cultures. Shouldn't every family define its own culture and live by it based on the family conditions and the Word of God?"
The question has an inbuilt answer, and partly that's what we were saying. It's not so much that you create your own culture, but because we've grown up in, certain cultures, there are good elements in every culture. And so we're not saying we become aliens to our own culture. That's how some people live. And we disapprove of rejecting where you come from. You are who you are, partly because of where you come from, So it's important, we think it's more helpful to identify elements in each culture, or the cultures to which the couple belong, ones that they find good, and then they, as we said, major on practicing them, so that even people from the same cultures say, wow, these people, they're really cultural. Yes, when it comes to such and such. So that's what we strongly encourage. You see, it's not just a name. Because you have the name, that means you belong to that culture. A name is a name. People have names from places where they've never seen and they will never see. It doesn't make them any more like those people, you see. But it's more of how we live. Because, as we said, culture is a way of life. And yes, there are good aspects of different cultures that we can adopt and make part of our daily living, regardless of where we're living, like showing respect for people, how to greet people, how to receive visitors. These are all cultural things. They're not traditional. They're cultural things, and they're important that we should not lose. It's not only, you have to wear this kind of dress to show you are a cultural person. It doesn't show you a cultural person. That's why we have people wearing clothes from places where they have never been or will never see. It doesn't make you any more Japanese if you wear a kimono and you are a woman. It doesn't, So let's think about those. That's why we say, yes, it has an inbuilt answer. What's good in my culture? What's good in yours? What can we apply to our marriage? We're not really creating another culture. We're only the things that are good. Let's keep them. Things that aren't good, abuse, repression, maltreatment of people, those are the things we also do away with. We don't pass them on to the next generation. The things that we uphold, even promote, and pass them happily to the next generation, so that they can feel proud of those aspects of our culture. And we can also feel proud of them, that they will carry on the culture. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Uncle Richard. Thank you so much for the response. Another question, and this question is actually coming again from the US, and it says, what role do arranged marriages play in culture, and how do they compare to love marriages? I'm not sure if I understand the question well, but Uncle since you are more experienced,
No, it's okay.
you get it.
Okay. There are cultures where marriages are arranged. You know, they find a woman for the man or find a man for the woman. It depends on the culture. Marriages are arranged. It works for some people. You get married to somebody you totally do not know. They introduce you, you're supposed to study each other. And,
Like video sometimes.
well, for some people, it works. For some people, it does not work. You may find there are different things about a person that you don't like. For some people too, it works well, they like the person, they can work together. It's up to you. If you come from a place where marriages are arranged, and mind you, not all people who come from those areas also get married that way. Some of them, they don't like it, so they don't go with it. So if the person doesn't like it, if your son doesn't like arranged marriages or your daughter doesn't like arranged marriages, don't force them. The best you can do is to explain things to them. Why things are done that way, and if they still don't want it, don't force them. And if you don't like it, you don't have to be scared of your parents. You just have to explain things to them, so they will allow you to find your own. For some people, the reason why it comes in is that they are looking at their son. He's 35, he's getting to 40, they still haven't found anybody. So that's that way. We'll bring in the arranged marriage, find someone for you. So it depends on the culture. It is changing. Some people, even in those areas that they strictly arrange marriages, some of them have changed now. So they allow their children to find wives and husbands for themselves. So it depends.
Got you.
Let's not assume that one has an advantage over the other, because different pressures apply. If you belong to a culture that goes with arranged marriages, if you find your own, that may be a problem. You know, although as you know, Vivian is saying, there are subtle changes coming. Sometimes the people meet, and then the families do the arranging. You know, so there are ways. You know, that's a modern touch to long-standing culture. You see.
But generally, the marriage depends on yourself.
The two people.
The two people getting married. So whether it's an arranged marriage or whether you found each other, it all depends on the two of you. There is none better than the other. Both can work very well. And both can also turn very far, even though it was arranged. We know a family that, you know, both families were very happy. They arranged everything for them. They were very happy. It did not go well.
And we do know a family where the first time they actually met,
yes,
the man and his wife,
yes,
were at Heathrow Airport.
yes.
They were both not from Britain, but he is studying in Britain, and his family met. They found a woman for him, so to speak, and then, as we say, who said that to him?
Because in those times, now we have all kinds of means
Of even seeing.
of seeing. That time, you don't have any way of seeing the person.
Yeah. He only had a photo of her, which had been mailed to him. That's what he used to identify her at Heathrow Airport in London. But guess what?
They are happily married. Over 40 years.
Over 40 years of marriage. And very much in love, by the way. We do know this couple, and it's not us, so don't worry. But yes, and you know, having said that, One aspect of arranged marriages sometimes is the background check, so to speak, of the family, etc. You know, and with love marriages, that sometimes, or when I'm saying love marriage, marriages where the people themselves have met, they fall in love, and inform their parents, sometimes that can be missing. There are families also that do their own checks. So, you know, so there are ways in which things that were done in the past, and you say culturally or traditionally, have seen some changes. And we can also, in our time, bring about some positive change as we also have opportunity to influence our families and yes, by extension, our culture. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Uncle Richard. Thank you, Auntie Vivian. Another question which is coming from Zimbabwe, and it says that are there any traditions or customs related to marriage that you would like to see evolve or change in our culture? Over to you, Mr. Crab. This one, I don't know which culture is referring to, but since it's from Zimbabwe.
Right. I'm not sure. I don't know Zimbabwe specifics, but you know, I gave a few examples. So maybe we're going to give you the assignment to begin looking at, you know, to learn about your own culture. You need to ask questions from the elders, you know, for example, about issues of oneness. You know, when someone marries, how does the clan or, you know, the man's people, how do they view the woman? Do they view her as part of them, or she's kind of a visitor to our family? The children, do they belong to both of them, or they belong only to the man? Things like that. What about inheritance? Because it's part of marriage, you know. We're not even thinking of the man or woman dying and one of them inheriting the other. But what about children? In some places, it's not automatic that the children will inherit their parents. You know, that when a man dies, sometimes it goes to his clan, for example. And it's the head of the clan who decides who gets what. You know, so do your own research, talk to the elders, find out about naming. Can you have a name that doesn't belong, you know, that originates from the family? What about in-laws? What's their role? You know, those are things we have to find out about. And once we do, we can also bring in, you know, our own thoughts to bear. And Vivian and myself, we've had some very productive, constructive, I should say, discussions with family heads. And one of the things we found out, friends, is that when you get married, in many, many places, we've talked with people from different countries, when you get married, as a man, you are now joining the leaders, the elders. You no longer go with the young people, the young men, so to speak. A woman, no, you don't go with a single woman. Now you're joining the women, the wiser people. Because the oldest ones are thought to be the wisest, right? But you also begin to have a voice. And when you also speak, the older people listen. And we can buttress that by the way we live. You see, because they will respect us. Oh, he got married. We haven't heard any story that he beats his wife, or, you know, he doesn't take care of his family. You have respect, you know, and that helps that your voice becomes more and more a voice of authority also among your own people. So find out about this and find out about some taboos. You know, what is forbidden for a man to do in his marital home, what is forbidden for a woman to do in her marital home.
And why?
And why? Because the why is what we should always aim at. Why? And you mentioned marriage. Sometimes, what happens to a widow There's some widowhood rights that are not just repressive, they are abusive. You know, for example, men, almost nothing if they become widows. But women are subjected to all kinds of things. Should we continue to encourage this, or should we, begin to speak up against some of those things? Surely, where we can exert influence, we can begin to do so. And that's what we should be looking out for. But that's a great question. So the assignment is yours, friend from Zimbabwe, and maybe to all of us. Wherever you live, begin to find out about some of these things from your own cultural origins. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Uncle Richard. Thank you for that contribution. Another question here, and this is coming from Ghana. And it says that, thank you very much for this powerful program. I am from Ghana, and I have married a woman from here in the United States, a white woman, of course. My question is, which has been a battle which I am trying to get a solution to. And the question is, one second here, I think, one second. All right, so it said, how can in-laws respectfully share cultural wisdom while allowing couples independence? My wife doesn't want to have children. My in-laws, which is her in-laws, which is my parents from Ghana, are putting pressure on us to have children. I am okay with it, but how do I convince them, knowing very well of our culture? Thank you.
That your wife, the wife doesn't want children.
Yes, that's what he says.
Does he want children?
Well, he said he's okay with it. I don't know what okay means, whether he just accepted it because that is what the wife wants.
If he is okay with it, see, these are the things that you consider before getting married. If you want children and your wife doesn't want children, that's what you have to think about before, whether you should go ahead with this woman or not.
In relation to what is acceptable or not in your culture?
In your culture. If you have accepted it, you are okay with not having children, then you have to tell your parents. You have to explain to your parents. They shouldn't put any pressure on the woman. You agreed with it before you got married. You see, the problem is that sometimes we think that because we love the person so much, we will agree with whatever she says. When we are married, it will change. It will not change. So you have to think about it properly. This one, it is not, it is on you. You will have to talk to your parents. If you agree with what your wife says, that she doesn't want children, therefore you also don't want children, that is what you have to talk to your parents about. But if you are trying to please her, but secretly you want children, and so you are believing that your parents will pressure her to have children, you are in big trouble. So you have to figure it out yourself. And that is to everybody. Many people will love to have children. Some people, their partners, may not want children. It's up to you to decide. Those are the things you talk about before you get married. Even how many children do you want? Talk about all those things before you get married. Agree on these things, and then there will be no friction in the marriage. There will be no trouble.
And since you're saying you're from Ghana, let me give you the most ignored all parts of Ghana that we know about. Children make the marriage. In other words, a marriage without children is often not recognized as marriage. This is why in several of these areas, when a couple are not having children, usually it's assumed it's the woman's fault. She is medically unfit to have children, so the pressure is on the man to go have a child or children outside his marriage. Maybe that's part of the pressure you're facing. So as Vivian has said, you better man up and speak up and free your wife from any harassment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Uncle Richard. Another question coming in here. Let me go to YouTube first before I come back to the other questions. The question here is coming from the US, specifically from New Jersey. And it says, please, what advice can you give to someone who is concerned with having children when it seems the couple are on two different paces with regards to spiritual growth? I'll repeat the question, Uncle Richard. It says, please, what advice can you give to someone who is concerned with having children when it comes to couple, when it seems the couples are on two different paces with regards to spiritual growth?
It's not very clear. The question is not very clear. Why are you on different phases of spiritual growth?
That's not clear what that different phase of spiritual growth means.
Exactly.
The person saying they are from different religions or what?
I may assume, in fact, that's the reason why I did read the question again, because myself it wasn't that clear, but I will assume maybe that is it. So, listener, if you don't mind, you can retype your question again and be very specific. Mr. and Mrs. Club will be glad to answer that. So whilst you do that, we go to the other question, which is, how can you exploit while building your own tradition and keeping it safe, respected, yet biblical space for both parties?
Okay. The first thing you have to do when you are getting married, when you meet the man or the woman, you have to respect each other first as a person. And you respect each other's cultures. And then you can talk about it and discuss and see how best you can maintain and you make the most out of both cultures. Sometimes it becomes about four cultures because the woman's mother is from a different culture, the father is from a different culture, the man's mother from a different culture, the father is from a different culture. That makes four cultures immediately, which you have to work with. But you can do it by first respecting each other's cultures and then learning about them. That means that you have to know the cultures. We are living, we don't even know our own cultures. You have to study your own culture, understand why things are done in certain ways and how they actually are done. Then you respect your culture and you respect your spouse's culture. Then you can work together. Problems come because we think our culture is the best. We don't respect our spouse's culture. That immediately will make your wife or husband rebel against your culture too. If you don't want mine, I don't want yours either. So we have to first learn our own culture, know it, understand it. Then we learn our spouse's culture, know it, understand it. Then we can work together, respecting each other's cultures and working together. It can always work.
He says that trying to adhere to traditional values in their marriages than the older generation. If so, why will you think so?
The basic reason is that, first of all, we ourselves, we don't know our culture and traditions. We don't know it. And so we are not teaching the young ones. For some of them, we have never taught them anything about our culture and traditions. And because we don't know it, we don't know how to teach. But we want to hear, we are people say, I'm very, very traditional. They don't know anything. So that is the problem. If the young ones are not into culture and tradition, it is our fault. We have to teach them. And you don't teach them when they are 30 years old. You teach them from childhood. That means you will have to know your culture. Culture is dynamic. Feel proud of your culture, but know it and teach your children. If you teach your children from childhood, they know it, they will do it. They will not go against it. They will not rebel. It's because we ourselves, we don't know it. So we are not even teaching them. So it's not like they don't want to do. We haven't taught them. And basically, we don't know it ourselves. So we have not taught them. So that is the problem. So if we can teach them, they will take it up. They will do it. They will not rebel against it.
Thank you very much. I would like to add also that for some of us, the problem or the reason we're now worried that the next generation might not want anything to do with our culture is our own doing. Not only have we not taught them anything about our culture, but we have been very negative about things relating to our countries of origin, even sometimes the families or areas where we've grown up. You know, we threaten our children. I will send you to country X so you will see how life is. You go there and suffer. So they don't want to do anything to do with the country. You know? And sometimes, I mean, who wants to go to a place where they hear only negative things and people suffer and all this kind of thing? No. So wasn't there anything good when you were growing up? Nothing good? And you survived? Wow. You're superhuman there. So what are the good things that you can look back to and smile at? Why haven't you told your children? And for some people, we have decided to become someone else in another country, so we don't want to do anything with our own country. We won't visit. Our children will not visit. Some have never got their children back to their own countries of origin. And not because you are a refugee. But it's because you want to be someone else and live as someone else. Why now there is the next generation? What traditions are you going to pass on to them? What cultures do you want to pass on to them? You know? And like Vivian was saying, some of us were actively members of, you know, this association from my village or town or my ethnic group. You know, we dress this way, we sing these songs, we listen to this, we eat this food, and then we give our children American food. So why do they want to associate with you? We speak English with them, American English. We the couple, we speak our own language or languages. We speak English with our children. Ask yourself, what language, you know, and especially for those who are from Africa. Why is it that the Chinese speak Chinese to their children? Indians speak different Indian languages to their children. You know, the Hispanics, they're speaking Spanish with their children. Why is it that the Africans speak English with their children?
Only English.
Only English. Ghanaians, Nigerians, Kenyans, Zimbabweans, we're all speaking English with our children. Sierra Leoneans. Why? Why? Why can't we speak our own languages? But when it's marriage, you think, oh, they should marry from Sierra Leone, they should marry Ghanaian, they should marry Nigerian. What language are they going to speak with them? When they can barely greet in the language. For those who do well, they understand, but when you ask them, they give you an English response. How are they going to fit? So you see the problem? We have created some. But if you still have very young kids, it's not too late. And even if your kids are now adults, it's not too late. You can still go visit and learn for themselves. You can show them that there is another side. And yes, some of us parents, we might have to apologize for telling.
Thank you very much, Uncle Richard. Thank you so much. So there's another question here, and it says that, yes, I know you, based on all your presentation, sorry, this question is coming from the US, and it says all your presentations, you have referred to discussing before marriage. Some of us came to this country and we unfortunately have to fall in love with people in order for us to be able to become legal. And because we have already find ourselves in a situation where we are unable to repair the damage, we are stuck, and we have married to people outside of our culture. Now, going forward, we are experiencing the culture shock. How do we coexist and appreciate the fact that we have already made mistakes and we are in it and have to compromise or adhere to the cultural differences without walking out of the relationship? Because I have thought about it many times, but I also realized without the help of this woman, I wouldn't have become illegal in this country. Thank you.
We have to talk about everything. You see, it's not too late. You have been married to this woman or man, in whatever case you are in, and first it was just for papers, let's face it. So maybe there wasn't even love, but you have to make do with what you have. But it can also change. You can learn from each other. It grew. I'm sure there's some love there now, and you can still work together. So you have to talk with each other and get understanding so that you can respect each other's culture. There sure are good things in your culture that I'm sure your wife will love to know and do if you explain it properly to her. Introduce her gradually to it. How about taking her to your country to visit? From what I have seen, especially the Americans who go out, who have married people from outside America, when they go, they love it. They enjoy it. So you can introduce her to it and gradually teach her. That is, the first thing is that you yourself know your culture very well and know the reasons why things are done. Then you can explain it. It is never too late. You can do it. Especially if you are both Christians. Because with God, all things are possible. You can talk with your spouse. And you can discuss things and it can work.
Thank you very much. You use a certain word, and we hear it often. Oh, we should compromise. We discourage using compromise as a way to do. See, when you compromise, it means you lose something so that something can work. What we're talking about is you are not losing your culture. You have it, and both of you will identify the good things in it. So you adopt from each culture things, the good things that you can practice in your own marriage, you know. So you are who you are, yes. You want to eat fufu is part of your culture. Do you stop eating fufu because you are married to an American? I know Americans who married, you know, Nigerians. Now they enjoy the eba more than the Nigerians. You know, the Americans who enjoy red, they enjoy fufu, all the peanut butter soup, yes, you know. That's the way of life of the people they married. Now they're enjoying it too. What if they said, oh, I'm married to an American, we're only going to have burgers? Or, you know, no. We can adopt from it. So we're not losing, but we are taking from it. I will be who I am, but my mind will be open as a person. That's what we should all be telling ourselves. And if you find yourself in this situation, and be open. Open that dialogue with your spouse so you can do it. And yes, the person who was saying this, basically saying, before you marry, you have to know what you're getting into. Don't get in and then you have a shock. You know. But go in with your eyes wide open, your ears open. You know, when I get married, this is how it's going to be. Well, there'll be this and that I might have to do differently. That's all. We hear, for example, you know, we hear this, you know, like from the Ghanaian community. Oh, our Ghanaian men, when they marry Americans or they marry white people, they do everything for them. But when they marry we, the Ghanaian women, they don't do it. What's going on? You know, why can't we do some of the things we, the men, I'm talking to my brothers, that we would do for a non-Ghanaian woman? Why wouldn't we do that for a Ghanaian woman? Because your people will talk? You know, think about it. Are we being fair to our women also, so to speak? You know, that's a discussion we need to have. And if it's okay to do it for a non-Ghanaian, or non-Nigerian, if you are Nigerian, non-Kenyan, non-Zimbabwean, non-Sierra Leonean, why would it not be good to do it for a Sierra Leonean too? Those are some of the discussions we should be having, rather than insisting where I come from. If where you come from, men don't do this, then whether you're married to somebody from your country or not, then you stick to it. But then we're not. So it means we can do differently. And so, if we can do it for somebody from somewhere else, why not for our own, so to speak? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Uncle Richard. Another question from the US, which reads, for those of us who are bringing up our kids in the US, should they not learn the culture of the place where they are growing up? After all, a majority of them will not return to the countries of their parents. It was interesting to hear the answer of a young lady. She said, I am from only, but my parents are from Nigeria. What do you think, Uncle Richard?
She said she's from where?
I think she's from Olin. I think it's one of the states. I don't know which state or one of the cities in the states. But what he's trying to say is that she's from, let's say for instance, I'm from Virginia, but my parents are from Nigeria. So the person doesn't see him or herself from Africa.
up to you yourself. We haven't said they shouldn't learn the culture of the place. The problem is that some of us are in America. We don't even know the American culture. We don't know anything. We don't know anything. So we are not saying that they shouldn't learn the culture here. They should learn the culture. And it's up to you. If they want to go back home or they don't want to go back home, it all depends on how you bring them up and what you teach them. Whether they're proud of their country or not. Whether they're proud of their heritage or not. So it's up to you. You yourself, are you proud of your heritage? The way you feel about your country and your traditions, it shows in your children. If you respect your culture and your tradition, you will teach them to your children, and therefore they will respect it. And they will want to go back or not. Even if they are here, if they don't go back, they can still like parts of your culture and go by it. It doesn't matter. The Japanese are here. They have been here third, fourth generation. They are still doing things like Japanese. There are Chinese here. They have lived third, fourth generation. They are still doing things like Chinese. There is no problem. Many people are here. They have been here for a long time. They have lived, some of them, like I said, third and fourth generations, but they are doing the things in their culture. It's up to us to respect our culture and teach our children so that they will be able to do it. If you don't think it's important, there is no problem. Nobody is holding you for it. If you don't think it's important, nobody is forcing you to teach your children your culture. It's up to you to do it or not.
Thank you very much. So, it's not that the children are not to, but yes, we are a product of many cultures. Like we said, parents may come from one culture. Children, yes, they're growing in America, let's say, but what are the influences they have? And let's give them the best of all the worlds to which they can belong. And it's part of their heritage. That's who they are. It says, yeah, there's the young girl you said, she truly said, my parents are from Nigeria. Yes. Yeah, she's from, this is the hometown she knows, so that's what she mentioned. There's nothing wrong with that. What would be wrong is if she does not want to identify with anything Nigerian. Because it's part of her identity, but she can kill it or the parents can kill it. What we're encouraging is that parents, immigrants in another country, bringing up your children in that country, let them know that the totality of their heritage includes yours and the country in which we're growing. As we said, we are all products of culture and tradition. It includes where we live now. Many of us, because we've moved to other countries than our own, yes, those countries have also influenced us, influenced our thought patterns, influenced our behavior. Does that mean we no longer belong to where we've come from? No. But it does mean that we can keep a healthy balance of everything that makes us who we are, everything that influences us, even on a daily basis. Let's not only stop at names, let's not only stop at clothing. You travel to your country or you have things made for you and brought for your children. No. Let's not only stop at the food we eat. There are other cultural practices, greetings, receiving visitors, participating in naming, how we come together, even festivals. Coming week, or in 2 days or so, just over a week, it will be Halloween. And many people who come from, who immigrated to the US, for example, from other countries, will be celebrating Halloween. Some of those same people, when you mention a festival from their own country, they say, oh, it's idolatrous. Oh, they're all these spirits. And I'm talking about Christians. But they'll be happily celebrating Halloween on October 31.
And Halloween is more idolatrous and full of demons than your culture. What
But a festival,
from a festival,
many festivals may not come, be full of that. Or we have the Mexicans who have they have the Day of the Dead. It sounds like Halloween in a way, But even they make it more practical by visiting cemeteries and all that, So why do we frown on ours? Then we adopt somebody's because it's from the West, that is purer than ours. Those are things to think about. You realize that we also, I'm speaking as an African, we also have a rich heritage, one we can be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Uncle Richie. I have another one here, and it's coming from the United States. And it says that this is a very interesting subject. I have learned a lot. Indeed, culture plays a pivotal role in every form of relationship, just as Uncle Richard had mentioned in his presentation. It is a way of life. I get it. But recently, my husband, by the way, I'm a Caucasian here in the United States. My husband is from Nigeria. Recently, he came to me all exciting, telling me that as an African traditional man, he's entitled to marry as many women as he can. And so he wanted to let me know that he'll be traveling to Nigeria, and I should not be surprised if he comes back with a woman, because by their tradition it is allowed. I was so furious because there was no discussion when we started our love life about having multiple wives. So I said to him in a very peaceful and a calm way, that's okay with me. By the time you come back, I will have a man in our home as well, since my culture also permits me to marry multiple men. And since then, my husband have not said a word to me in the last 6 months. Am I wrong? If so, please advise me. Thank you.
In fact, you are not wrong, my sister, because he did not. There are a few things that I even want to talk about in this thing. If you are Christian, the culture thing doesn't come in at all. This traditional man marrying 2, 3 women, it doesn't even come in. If you are Christian, that's a lie. Some people, I've heard a few people say those things. I am a traditional man, I can marry 2 or 3 people, they're fooling you. It doesn't happen that way if you are Christian. And if you are not Christian, then you have to talk about all these things before. All the things that come with if you are just traditional people, then you should have talked about all that. And I think you put it right, because you did not talk about it that way. And he is bringing it up now. You have also brought up a good point, that in that case, I will also have a man. And if he likes it, then you should go along with it. So that's it. It doesn't come in at all. He agreed to marry you. He knows that when you marry from here, it's only one. He knew about that long ago, so you shouldn't bring it in now. So, my sister, you are not wrong at all for what you told him. I think, you know it well.
But he says he hasn't talked with her for 6 months. So that also has change.
So he has to come up with a reason why he's not talking with you. Why doesn't he like it that way?
No, they have to get to talking again. It's not about multiple marriages, but we hope that doesn't mean your relationship or marriage with him is broken down, but yes, you can be unhappy, you're not agreeing, and even the process, even if both of you are not Christians and all that, there is a process that a man undertakes before he marries another wife. If he's already married, he just doesn't get up one day, tell his wife, I'm going to marry somebody else to pray. No. Traditionally, it is not done. It is disrespect to the wife. So, yes, he's from Nigeria. Tell him I said so. He should check from where he comes. That is the procedure. You have to, you don't
His
just...
wife has to agree.
You don't just inform your wife, I'm going to bring and bring. That is not done. No. There is a procedure that is followed. And in some areas, the first wife is even compensated for that happening. That's why it's the whole process. It's not simply, I'm going to marry somebody. I'm traveling, I'm coming back with another wife. As we ask to live where. So it's more than just saying you want to do something because you want to, and therefore you will do it because that's what is done where you come from. We have to respect each other as people and treat each other right. That's very important. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the last question is coming from Ghana, and it reads,
The New Jersey question, they didn't
The person didn't come back.
come back.
yes, the person didn't come back, so hopefully they will, but if not, we are wrapping up. This last question I have here is coming from Ghana, and it says that since we are talking about culture, tradition, and marriage, I know most Christian pastors, religious leaders frown on polygamous relationship. But isn't polygamous relationship an African culture? And number two, in the Holy Scriptures, the great men that walk side by side with God, the likes of Solomon, the likes of David, the likes of Abraham, the likes of Jacob, they all had more than one wives. I know, since I have listened to Mrs. Crab many times, will say that Solomon said all is vanity. But let's put the vanity aspect on the parking lot for now, for the purpose of this discussion. Why is it that all these great men that walk side by side with God had multiple wives and it never mattered to God? Thank you.
It's interesting that you think it didn't matter to God. Now, multiple wives has brought so many problems. The problem we are having right now between the Israelis and the Palestinians is part of the multiple wife thing. Bear it in mind. The thing that it has caused.
That is, the Palestinians partly descend from Ishmael, who actually his mother wasn't even a wife.
But she gave her to him, so it's part of the problem. And all the rivalries that came between Isaac and Rebecca, their son Jacob. Jacob married his own cousins. Even between them, two sisters and their sons. You see all the trouble that they had, hatred and everything for, they had their cliques. It doesn't bring anything good. It is not how many women you can get. It is how best you can keep one. That is a man. You see, selfishness in us makes us think that this one will be better. So you keep going. People who have multiple marriages, so those who are polygamous, you think that if they have 2 wives, they'll be fine. Then they go to the third, they go to the fourth. They're never satisfied. And even the people who are in polygamous marriages, they have married 2, 3 women. They still have girlfriends. They can't control themselves. It is not how many women you can marry or how many women you can get. It's how well you can keep one. When God started creation, if he wanted a man to marry 2, 3 women, he would have made 2 women for Adam. He made only one. And the thing is, he said a man will leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife. He didn't say to his wife. He will cleave to his wife. And the 2 shall become one flesh, not 3. You cannot become one flesh with 2, 3 people. You will not be loyal to all of them. Even in the Muslim religion, they say that you can marry 4 women if you can treat all of them well. How many Muslim men have you seen marrying and treating all the women the same? They themselves. We've talked with a Muslim guy who said at home. Otherwise, they quarrel all the time because you can't do it properly. But he says that when the wives are quarreling, you are asleep because they're dealing with their own situation. It's very sad. Let us not think about these things. That, God allowed it. God has given us ourselves to He does not force us. But everything we do, we have the consequences. We bear the consequences. That is why Solomon should go and do everything and finally see that it is all vanity of vanity, chasing the wind. And he will advise against those things. So we should be very careful.
One aspect we often forget, or something that is missing in this argument about great men of God had more than one wife. What was their family life like? What happened in their home with their children? What happened? Even Abraham, who had just 2, Isaac and Ishmael, they couldn't even live in the same state. They couldn't even live in the same state. We are suffering today in the Middle East was the result of those children, those unions. That's one. So think in terms of what happened after. 2, Solomon, to those who think it was great, 700 wives, 300 concubines. This is what the Bible writes, and I'm addressing it as a Christian. 1 Kings 11. It says, as Solomon grew old, his wife turned his heart after other gods, and his heart was not fully devoted to the Lord his God, as the heart of his father David had been. He followed Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, Molech, the detestable god of the Ammonites. He turned his heart away from God. So he married from all over. That's Solomon, repeated to the wisest man, even him. And you know what Solomon told his own son? Proverbs 5, verse 15. Drink water from your own source, running water from your own well. Stay with one wife. Don't go spreading your fountain in the public place. Stay with one. Proverbs 5, 15 to 19. Read that also. So you have to think also what happened to the generation after that. David, even before he died, his sons from different women were fighting each other to find out who would succeed him. Solomon, by the 2nd generation, the kingdom was split, never to come together. Still much mercy. So let's not think that it was great. And here the allowing is not the same as approval. Allowing, God allowing does not necessarily be approval. Let's not be careful. Okay, Dr. Sam, we've run over our time, which is unusual. Over to you to close it.
Thank you so much.
God bless you. Continue the discussions about culture, tradition, and your marriage, where you are, whether you are married or not, whether you meet somebody, whenever you meet someone, talk about it. Find out what's great, what you need to work out, what you need to have to do. Best of all, let's enjoy who we are. Because we all are product of culture and tradition. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Uncle Richard. Thank you, Auntie Vivian. Thank you, our listeners from around the world. It has been a great presentation and a learning curve for all of us. One of the things, one of the takeaways from this meeting is that culture plays a significant role in relationships, but culture as well is dynamic. Therefore, we should not hide in the name of culture to abuse our relationships, but yet we ought to use culture as a way to enhance our marriages. Thank you so much, and we wish you all the best, and we look forward to seeing you again next month, in the month of November, as we get closer to the end of the year. God bless all of you. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and hopefully you have a blessed and wonderful week ahead of you. Take care and have a blessed day for now. Bye bye, everyone.